Okay, welcome to Saturday Night Firing Lines, normally with Douglas Dietrich, but I'm your guest host this evening, Ed Opperman. I'm the host of the Opperman Report, normally on every Thursday morning at 11 a.m. Pacific Time on Studio A. But Doug is going to be at the UFO Con convention at the Cypress Center in San Jose, California this weekend, so they asked me to fill in for him. Okay. Let's see, I also have a blog called The Opperman Report, and I have a book that I wrote called How to Succeed as a Private Investigator that you can find on my website, emailrevealer.com. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to thank my producer, Ann, for all her help in getting the show together and pulling in a double shift for us this week since we're covering two shows, covering for Doug. Now, let's see, if you missed my last show that I just did this Thursday, I had on Vito Colucci, who's the author of Rogue Town. And he's the host of Crime Time with Vito Colucci, P.I., and that's on Business Talk Radio. And so if you missed that show, because it was a really big show, because Vito's in the news this week all over the place, he's on that Michael Skakel case, the Martha Moxley, Michael Skakel case, and he's been on CNN and Court TV all week long, because they just had a big hearing about that. And Vito actually testified in that trial. So if you missed that, you can go to the station's YouTube channel, which is called Revolution Radio, and you can catch Vito over there, and that's a really good show. We had a lot of response on that. So now I'm filling in for Doug, and the plan was we were going to do a couple of West Memphis Three shows. I had a show booked for this Thursday coming up with William Ramsey, who's the author of Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West Memphis Three Murders. So now William was supposed to come on Thursday morning, and tonight we were supposed to have a show with Sean Wheeler, who's a longtime expert on the case. We did a show way back a couple of months ago with Sean Wheeler and Terry Hobbs, who's the stepfather of little Stephen Branch. He's one of the murder victims in this trial, in this case. And we had so many audio problems that I wanted to have Sean back and I wanted to have Terry back to give their accounts of the case and their version of events. And we were even going to have Pam Hicks, who's the mother of little Stephen Branch and the ex-wife of Terry Hobbs. And we were going to have all those three on tonight. And then we were even going to have a guy who was claiming to be a member of the family of one of the convicted murderers, who's a man named Damien Eccles. And it turned out that there's so much controversy and agitation in the background of this case. Let me go into a little background on what the story is with the West Memphis Three. What happened was back around 1996, these three little boys were playing in the street down there in West Memphis, Arkansas. Little Stephen Branch, Michael Moore, and I always forget their names. One sec. Not great. Okay. Chris Byers, Michael Moore, and Stephen Branch, three little 8-year-old boys that were playing down there in 1993 in West Memphis, Arkansas. And they were targeted by these three young men, and they were chased down, they were attacked, they were raped, they were mutilated, and they were murdered. There was one of the men was captured right away. There was a trial. He confessed to this whole situation, and there were two trials. These men were convicted, and then what happened was HBO started putting on these documentaries, bringing up questions about their guilt. And what happened was then these people came out of the woodwork, these supporters, bringing up all this controversy and questioning the verdicts in the trial. So, and that's where we are today, pretty much, because this has grown into a small cottage industry. There's been three documentaries about this, HBO documentaries about this case. It's a very well-known case. So, in the last documentary, which was Paradise Lost, Purgatory, they pretty much went out of their way to smear Terry Hobbs, who was my guest on the last show. And so we brought Terry Hobbs to come on and give his side of the story and to pretty much clear his name. And we had Sean on the show to give all the case facts and his expertise, and he's an authority on the case and all his research he's done. He's interviewed just about every major player in his case, members of the family, witnesses, and everything. But we had such bad audio problems that I promised them I would bring them back. So we had them scheduled to come back on tonight with Pam Hobbs. Now, when I announced this, like normally, and I work a lot of cases, I work a lot of stories, big stuff, Zimmerman trial. I've been on a guest host about Casey Anthony and Jodi Arias and all these different cases I've been involved with. And even this Martha Moxley, Michael Skakel case, I just had Vito Colucci on. But I've never had a situation where we book a guest and people start calling up the guest at home and telling them not to come on the show and trying to influence them and all this controversy in the background. I've never experienced this with any other kind of show I've done or any kind of appearance I've done as a guest on another show. I've just never experienced this whatsoever. I was even involved in this whole Wienergate where, just recently where we actually, my agent has been credited with picking the mayor of New York City, okay? I was involved in big stuff with Sarah Palin and Todd Palin. I've never experienced a situation where there's so much fanatical fans or followers of the case that I have here in the West Memphis Three case. So the plan is now, tonight what we have with us is William Ramsey, who's the author of the book I mentioned before, the Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West Memphis Three case. And he's going to be talking about the connections of these three men, and especially Damien Eccles, with the satanic worship and devil cults, and all different things like that. He has a lot of information. He has a lot of great YouTube videos up on YouTube under the William Ramsey YouTube channel. And we also have two guys who are real big bloggers and case activists discussing this case all the time. We have with us Fred. Okay, let me get here. Okay, we have with us. Fred J. Walsh and another young man named Adam Galvin. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring all three guys on and have William Ramsey introduce himself and describe how he got involved in the case, and then we'll have Fred go, and then we'll have Adam go. You guys here?
I'm here. This is William Ramsey.
Okay, great. Welcome, William.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on your show. I'm really glad to be here. I kind of stumbled into the West Memphis Three case after watching a video online. I was researching a different book on Crowley. My first book was about Allister Crowley, and so I came across this video where Damien Eccles was being questioned by the prosecutor about his interest in Crowley, and he had written something in a strange script while he was in jail. And it really piqued my interest, so I was trying to figure out about the case. I remember I had seen Paradise Lost back in 1996 or 97, and I didn't really think much about it, and I recollected at that time that I remember they got released, and I just assumed that something was wrong with the case, like something had happened, and that they were innocent. I really didn't look into it. But once I saw that Crowley was a matter of interest in this case, then that I really started reading stuff, and I started by going back to case records and started looking over things, and I started reading other writers. There were some excellent sites out there. One was West Memphis Three Truth. I read some other writers. One was a guy by the name of Billy Sinclair. There was Trench Reynolds, Blake on Crime, other people who had analyzed it, and there were a lot of things that there were so many contradictions in the original case that I was like, well, which one is it? There was clearly a dispute. Are they innocent or guilty? So, I put on my kind of legal hat and went into case files. The case files are all really collected by a great website called Callahan.ak, Callahan after like Harry Callahan of Dirty Harry. So I was able really just to systematically read everything about the case, the trial, all the records that the police had aggregated, all the other suspects, and it was in almost direct contradiction a direct contradiction into the allegations of innocence professed by the West Memphis Three, that they were targeted because they wore black and were different. Well, the reality is that based upon all the police investigations, these guys were heavy duty into witchcraft, and I had already known a lot about Crowley and witchcraft from my earlier research, so I was able to kind of key in on that, and it really led me to write a book that was very different than what the people who think they're innocent are saying, but also different than maybe the people who recognized their culpability in the crime. And so, I put together an original book and put it out there, and I can also profess that I've never experienced anything like this myself, similar to what you or maybe your guests have experienced as far as acrimony and the intensity of the conflict from so many different angles. I just never anticipated how little that they would want, somebody to discuss this case in a sensible, objective manner. And there's a lot of people who are interested in data fogging the case, in manipulating the facts and lying about the facts, in omitting facts and there's so many people doing that to me is a really remarkable element of this kind of crime saga. It's really a 20-year saga. And, there's clearly was one strong element in this case is the court of public opinion, not what happened in the actual legal process, but what people did outside and argued, and that level of intimidation is really remarkable. So my book came out just about a year ago, and it's you can go to my Amazon site and just see how many people are willing to cover for these guys. It's really incredible.
Yeah, another thing too, William, I noticed too on your YouTube channel that you have to turn off the comments because, and anybody who is anti-supporter, like anybody who knows the facts of this case and knows that these guys are guilty and puts out a YouTube video, they have to turn off their comments, otherwise they'll be barraged by a storm of attacks.
Yeah, and it's the same cast of characters. Like I was reading over your YouTube site, and it was the same people on mine. It's about 10 or 20 guys maybe it's one guy with 10 or 20, YouTube channels or something, but they don't waste a minute to make sure that there's an, opposing opinion on those comment boards. They're absolute trolls.
Yeah, right.
Whether they're paid or not, I don't know.
Okay, so here we have William Ramsey, who came to this case from the angle of studying people like Allister Crowley and Satanism and different angles and stuff like that. So that's how he came to this case, and he's concluded these three men are guilty, and he believes there's a satanic element to this. But we also have Fred Walsh and Adam Galvin, who are real guys who were there in the trenches every day, arguing back and forth with these people. Okay, and they've become experts in this case as well. Now, Fred Walsh, can you tell us about yourself and how you got involved in this case, researching it and debating online?
Hey, good evening.
Nice to have you, bro.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, my entry point, like many people, was the Paradise Lost films that called attention to the case broadly. I really didn't come to them, though, until about 2004, 2005, so they had been out since 1996 was the first one. And in watching movies, in watching any movie, really, I tend to go beyond and do a little homework because I'm like that, and I like to read up on what I've been presented. And in reading up on the case after seeing the movie, the first two movies, I found that, as William talked about, there's a certain tendency to omit facts that most people would find pretty pertinent. For instance, the two biggest things I think omitted from the Paradise Lost movies were the fact that the young guy who had confessed and implicated his two friends, implicated the entire West Memphis Three as they came to be known, from watching the films, the viewer would be led to believe that he confessed, that he quickly reversed himself and from that point forward maintained his innocence. And that would lend towards more a sense that maybe the confession was coerced. But in fact, when you start studying the case or reading about it online, you'll find that Jesse Misskelley confessed several more times, or as I would put it, at least 6 documented, where the first was the confession to police on June 3rd, 1993, and then there's record now available to us 2 more times to his own lawyer over the summer of 1993, where he maintained his guilt to his lawyer, Dan Stidham. And we have record now of a June and an August statement implicating himself and implicating Damien and Jason, the other 2 convicted, in the same way. Now, after the trial was over, as many listeners already know, Jesse Misskelley, after being convicted, confessed again to his own lawyer, which the entire transcript of that is available, and again to his own lawyer and prosecutors. And on the way from his conviction to jail, he talked to the deputies who were transporting him. So those kind of omissions, the other one from the films being the psychological profile of the chief accused, Damien Eccles. From the film Paradise Lost, you are allowed some glimpse into what his state of mind is through his interview portions, but you are not aware that, in fact, in the sentencing phase of the trial, his defense put forward this extensive psychological history over the prior year leading up to the crimes, which had him institutionalized in mental health facilities 3 times for suicidal and homicidal impulses, and listed all sorts of other sort of red flags as to what I think to a reasonable person would be considered slight disturbing behavior, or reasons for concern. So these kind of things were not in the films, and the more I read about those kind of omissions and studied the case at, as William pointed out, the one site that everyone on either side of this thing can agree on is unbiased and a great resource is that Callahan website William pointed out.
And that's run by a guy named Monty, right?
There are, as I understand it, there are 2 or 3 founders. Monty is either a founder or a main contributor, yes. There's a guy named Christian, who I believe is in Germany.
Don't let me sidetrack you. Let's give Adam Galvin a chance to introduce himself and tell us how'd you get involved in the case, Adam?
Well, I had an interest in criminal justice and, in particular, controversial cases. I'd studied a little bit into the Wayne Williams case, the Williams Hirons case. Well, it was one of the reasons why that really took me with this. There's actually people out there that thought that they were guilty. I had no idea when I first heard about the case. My first introduction to it, I'd heard about John Mark Byers. How everybody was certain that John Mark Byers was the real guy, that he was out there, that he had his teeth pulled. And they were like, oh, there's a bite mark. There's a bite mark on the bodies. Therefore, John Mark Byers has to be guilty because he had his teeth pulled, and he has multiple stories concerning how he lost his teeth. But then, 2007 came by, and Terry Hobbs is suddenly the guy, the suspect. Then eventually I started to get really more involved, and I started talking to a few of the parents in the case. I talked to some of the Moores, Michael's family. I'd been a little bit of I guess you could say a child advocate almost, because I'd been a victim of a child predator as a kid. I testified against a child molester when I was a child who was incarcerated for a number of years, and it had really kind of got me involved in criminal justice, I guess you could say, and it led me to eventually become a little bit of a blogger, and I started to write about a few different local cases, and eventually it just kind of built up to where I am today. I guess that's pretty much the gist of it.
Can you give us the link to your blog?
Sure. It's the WM3 Revelations, and it's WordPress.
Gotcha. Okay, so we have Adam Galvin and Fred Walsh, who are both guys who are active in this debate every single day, right? And then we have William Ramsey, who comes at it from the satanic angle. He's the author of a book. But the one thing we all have in common that I'd like to get to before we have a break coming up in about 6 minutes is the overwhelming intensity of the supporters and the funding that they have, and the way they're organized as a bunch of like online trolls and stuff like that. Who would like to get into that first?
I can comment on that further. I mean, it's really remarkable that how they've online their online presence, their ability to intimidate people who ask valid questions, and their ability to really dominate the debate in the public arena, whether it's TV, radio, books. It's really shocking, and that's one of the astonishing elements of this entire case for me, is like how many people are saying the same story and blocking out other opposing views. Like there's a whole group. It's not just the central perps, but also there's another author by the name of who wrote Devil's Knot. Like she thinks they're innocent. The directors of the documentaries, and how they've really dominated the public debate is remarkable.
Well, it seems like on a lot of these message boards and chat rooms and stuff like that, is that anybody who is not a supporter will immediately get banned, or they'll be overwhelmed with attacks with a party line. It seems like the organizers from these sites have a party line that they all have memorized, and if you disagree with them even slightly and step out of line even slightly, you get banned right away. So even people that are vocal advocates for these three victims, the three children, that really are passionate about it, they hold back out of fear from these people coming down on them, and they kind of hold back and have to be extra respectful in their responses back. But while these supporters can just be openly rude and abusive to anybody that even opens up their mouth. Like I came to this, listen, I have no dog in this fight, really. I'm not involved in this every day like I once was. But even when I just try and post a link on these blogs and promote my radio show, I'm just insulted left and right, called a liar, I was accused of paying guests. You guys know no one's getting paid on this show. Don't expect any money coming from me, fellas.
That wasn't my understanding.
Well, okay. It was nice having Fred on. We got to let him go. Okay. So it seems like a real big, giant, dysfunctional family where all the kids are afraid to piss off the big drunk daddy who's going to ban them from the site and not let them participate anymore. What do you guys think, Fred and Adam? Because you're in this every single day.
It's the use of numbers to silence a dissenting opinion, and they don't want to hear any tough questions, like anything that really question the mottos, the little quips that they have, whatever it may be that somehow points to their innocence.
Or that points to anything to do with the satanic cult aspect of this case. It's what I notice is a pattern of first they will LOL, poo-poo, it's ridiculous, it's impossible, but then they'll come back and say, oh, but you know what? Crowley's really not that bad. And if you really read the Satanic Bible, Anton LaVey's not that bad. You just don't understand it. So they're playing both sides of this. And I really want, when we get back, because we're going to have a break in a couple of seconds, when we get back, I want William Ramsey to tell us about the open involvement of especially Damien Echols with serious stuff like what do you call it, the Process Church, members of the Process Church, and his activity and all kinds of openly occultic activities like tarot cards and all kinds of stuff like that he's doing right now out in the open, where before he was claiming he was a Buddhist and he wasn't involved in any kind of occult activity at all.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we should be having a break coming up in a second, but I just want to remind everybody that we are a listener-sponsored station. We have no corporate sponsors. So if you want to support our station, you have to visit freedomslips.com and click on the donate button. And if you want to help me out, man, because I just got a ticket. I got pulled over tonight. I got a nice fat ticket. You can go to my website, emailrevealer.com, and you could buy my book called How to Succeed as a Private Investigator, which is available at my website, emailrevealer.com. Now, I'm filling in for Doug Dietrich, who is normally the host here on Saturday Night Firing Lines. And what I understand is that we're supposed to have a break at 7:30, but I don't hear the music coming on, so we may not have a break. On my show, I got a break every half hour where I can get up and get a drink and do whatever I got to do, but maybe we're not going to get that on Doug's show, so we might as well keep going. So we're going to assume we're not going to have a break, and we'll go right into William Ramsey. And William, tell us about all your YouTube videos and what you're seeing, the activity of Damien Echols right now, and his open involvement with people that are notorious Satanists like the Process Church.
Yeah, I mean, it's really remarkable. They have professed that, there was no witchcraft involved, no occult involvement, but it suffuses the entire case from the beginning to the end, even before he was arrested in June of 1993. I mean, there's tons of occult involvement, and they kind of suppress that, but since he's gotten out, he's covered his body in these black tattoos that have all kinds of occult meaning. He has admitted, one of the other things that I keyed into in his book, Life After Death, he has this best-selling autobiography, that in that book he admits to doing all these rituals that Allister Crowley did. So to say and profess that he was doing these, rituals indicates, and the type of rituals that he's doing is that it takes time and effort to do the rituals. I mean, to get an understanding and compile the information to do the rituals that Crowley advised. So he clearly has a deep knowledge of that, and he moved to Salem, Massachusetts, the site of the original witch trials, which is very strange. And he professes that the reason he moved there is because of the freedom and fear, that he won't be prosecuted, which, why would somebody want to prosecute you? Well, because you're into the occult or you're a witch. So he also has been in in movies with a notorious Satanist by the name of Genesis P. Orridge. He's associated with him, and I've also, there was another message board on Salem Web. Michael Blatty, actually, it's an interesting kind of side story. Michael Blatty lived there. He's the son of Peter Blatty, the author of The Exorcist. And when he also kind of realized that there's a convicted child murderer in his town, and started message boarding, and another Process member by the name of Fred Gianelli got on that message board and did the same kind of trolling behavior and all this other stuff that is so consistent in this case. So there's two guys who have ties to the Process who, Damien Echols either has a supporter, and it seems like they're in contact with him. So, continued contact.
Well, William, can you give us some history on the Process Church and exactly who they are?
Yes, the Process Church was is a splinter group from Scientology. The Process Church was founded by two people. It was a guy by the name of Robert Moore and his wife, and they changed their last name to DeGrimston, and they were very popular in the late 60s, early 70s, and they had this really ferocious apocalyptic view of the world that kind of came out of these kind of cult mentality and also the fear of nuclear Armageddon. And it was very secretive, very hierarchical, and the followers were fanatics. And they kind of broke up after the whole Manson trial. I mean, the Manson events, but they were associated. Charles Manson knew, or claims that he knew Moore or Robert Grimston, and that's kind of like one of the unspoken elements of the Manson case. He's actually said that, but they went underground. They rebranded. They changed their name. They became the Foundation, and they became something else. And some of these other members, other people, had an interest in him. One of them, namely, is Genesis P. Orridge, and they were linked to the Son of Sam killings, David Berkowitz. And most people who've studied that case have recognized that Berkowitz was part of a larger group of people. And Berkowitz has admitted that as well to Maury Terry, the author of Ultimate Evil.
Yeah, I actually had on Jim Rothstein, who was the NYPD detective who was in charge of the Son of Sam investigation in New York City. And we went into it's up on YouTube. I think you might have heard it. We have
listen to it.
Yeah. So he has all the details on the Process Church. He became like the go-to guy nationwide on the Process Church and all their activities and stuff like that. Another thing, is when Manson was in prison, he was visited by 2 members of the Process Church, and after that, he's never mentioned them ever again. So it seems like their reach is long and wide in everything they do. And they seem to be involved in a lot of stuff, man, in very, very high levels.
Well, one of the scarier elements of this case is the public supporters of the West Memphis Three. When you really start researching them, you start seeing connections that are extremely, extremely disturbing.
I remember when I was involved in debating this case every day the way Fred and Adam are now, okay, because about, I guess it was around 2000. Now, I got involved in like 96, 97, back on Usenet. They weren't even, you couldn't even make your own blog or anything back in those days, and that's where I met Sean Wheeler, who was a fascinating guy, and I followed all his postings on Usenet, on Alt WM3, back in those days when it was the original guys were involved. And what I found is, with these more rabid, fanatical supporters, is they start off saying, well, I dressed in black too, and that doesn't make me a killer, and I listen to Metallica, and I never killed anybody, and Damien Eccles, he stepped on a dog, and he killed a dog, and he had cat skulls in his house. Well, I've done stuff like that too. I've never killed anyone. And then you start talking about Dominique Tier and about how they tried to take her children away from her because she was like a hoarder and her house is... Well, I've had my kids taken away from me too. And as you get to know these supporters year after year after year, you start hearing their life story, a little gossip behind the scenes, and then admissions and chat rooms and stuff like that. And these people have some really extreme lives with a lot of stuff. There was this one woman who... her boyfriend shot himself in front of... She was at a strip club or something like that. She worked there, and her boyfriend shot himself in front of the club. Just incredible. Fred and Adam, have you had any kind of experiences like that? Because you guys are there in the trenches every day talking to these people, and I know it's sort of like your social life as well. I know you want to get along with these people. I understand that. But I think this is information that needs to come out.
Oh, how much time do we have?
I think we're not having a break, man. No one's going to get up and pee or have a smoke or anything until another 24 minutes. So, shoot.
I will say, so that certain supporters out there don't have apoplexy in the chat room or at their computers or standing by their phones. There are supporter contingent that have researched the case to their own satisfaction. They look at Callahan's site, they look at court documents, they review it more fully than just a fly-by-night, watch the movie, feel good about it, then stop sort of person. And they draw a different conclusion than I do, or that Adam does, or that you or William does. And, this being the Internet, and the anonymity it affords, and just people being people. And this case being so divisive, and even 20 years later, right now, there's going to be the fair share of mudslinging and slime balling, but you can find people on either side who are willing to engage on the facts. Now, the only problem I have, or the main one, is when someone wants to omit facts or say certain things on the record didn't happen or aren't true. What I always say is we are entitled to our own opinions, but we are not entitled to our own facts. So, but yeah, everyone's got their stories, and I'm sure supporters could call in with the times they felt slighted and ridiculed and left in a puddle of tears at their computer monitors. So,
how about you, Adam? What do you got to say? Have you ever left anybody in a puddle of tears?
Oh, sometimes. There's a few people that I blocked. I've heard some crazy stories out of the mouths of some of these supporters. I had one say that, it's normal to kill animals. Like, I've killed an animal. That's what they said. I've heard them say things like that. Like, I've heard one say that they cut an animal's head off once. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything if anybody does that. They always like to come out and say, well, I listen to, like, heavy metal music and I wear black. That doesn't mean anything. No, it doesn't generally mean something, but some people do. Like, some people get into, like, a dark mindset, and they also enjoy these types of things. And someone like Damien Eccles, he's like a Richard Ramirez wannabe. He wishes he was, but he doesn't quite make it there. It's kind of like almost like a poor man's Rod Farrell.
Well, Adam, I don't know if I agree with you with that, because he seems to be admired and worshipped by people that are attracted to this kind of thing. They really seem to hold him in high esteem. And I
do.
Yeah. Some of these celebrities, look at him in awe and fascination.
But they say, I was an outcast, he was an outcast, therefore we're hermanos, we're amigos.
I'm afraid it's a little more than that. You know what I'm talking about, William?
Yes, yeah, I do. I mean, I think that there's a strange amount of cause celebre hero worship involved in this case that, to me, is inexplicable. Like, the people who support him and gave him money are very well-known personalities. Natalie Maines, Johnny Depp, Margaret Cho. There's just so many people. I mean, this guy, I've seen Eccles with Ozzy Osbourne, Marilyn Manson. I mean, his ability to ingratiate himself with Peter Jackson of, who's done The Hobbit and these, like, some of the highest-grossing films on Earth in the history of the film industry, has had Damien Eccles to his house and lived with him at his house in New Zealand. So this guy is associating with these people on a very personal level, and it's really shocking.
Well, let's talk about this now. We were talking off the air about the PR company who's representing him now, and also I want to get into the funding that's come into this case way back from the time first when the Borg got together and started collecting money in an awareness fund, and then there was a legal defense fund, and then there's been sniping over money, and there's no accounting of any of this money ever. No one really knows how much money has come in, what it's been spent on. I heard one story about how, just recently, about how Damien Eccles' wife, Lori, was able to quit her job 2 years before he got out. So these people are receiving funds from somewhere. There seems to be a fountain of money pouring in here.
The amount that I heard estimated was 10 to 20 million. And Peter Jackson said that he spent $10 million on the thing. He was proud of that. So that's like a baseline. And they were able to hire a dream team of legal and other professionals to argue the case. I mean, the people that they had on their legal teams were no slouches.
Yeah.
I mean, they had John Douglas from the FBI. I don't know the name of the PR firm. I know the guy's last name is Sowery, but I've done a little research into him, and he has some A-list clients as well. He's very sharp, and God, it's just incredible the kind of Dennis Reardon, who is like probably the premier appellate attorney in the country. He's represented Barry Bonds. Like, he got Barry Bonds to, I mean, the magic he did with Barry Bonds is incredible. Like, he confessed to a misdemeanor in regards to steroids, his steroid use, which everybody knows the guy's on steroids. I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, incredible amounts of money, getting the best of the best, and they strong-armed the legal system in Arkansas.
Yeah.
And that money, you're right. There's no accounting. I can't find any accounting, but there's just been rumors of payoffs and payola, and strange things about this case. How people, changed their memory, and how interesting parties came in 15 years later with new evidence, and the new evidence against Hobbs, which would not stand up in court upon any scrutiny because it's completely fallacious, and the defense and the supporters are willing to distort the fact that they say it's Terry Hobbs' hair. Well, it's not really. It's from a DNA subset from which Terry Hobbs is cannot be taken out of. So it's a small amount of the population, but it's also part of a fishing expedition that the supporters went through to find any evidence they could find and pin on somebody else. It's just the amount of money they spent to get these guys out is.
Well, didn't Barry Scheck and the Innocence Project take a look at this case and they dropped it? They didn't want to pursue it?
Yes, and that's a great point you made, because that's another element that shows there's a problem, because the Barry Scheck's Innocence Project, it sounds like it's a non-profit. It's not. Barry Scheck's Innocence Project is a cash cow. It's a major money-making legal operation for private gain, because they're able to get these states to pay out millions and millions and millions of dollars for, false imprisonment charges. Like, I've been in jail for 20 years. The amount of money these guys get paid for that are seven figures. And Barry Scheck would not take the West Memphis Three case.
So, guys, Fred and Adam, do you have any idea that you're up against a $20 million PR campaign when you go in there and you're chatting with these people every day?
Yeah. Pardon me, Adam. I'll go and then and then please join in. The 10 to 20 million figure is pretty much what I've heard too. Exactly what William quoted. And when I was speaking before about supporters and what we call non-supporters having their differences and sometimes engaging in tactics online, I really shouldn't say there's an equivalency there, because the money bags on the side, if there was a scale with supporters on one side and non-supporters, the piles of Scrooge McDuck level gold on the supporter side is incredible. And I and Adam and other people can argue in these little corners of the internet about what's going on. We can speak here, but on the world stage, where Peter Jackson's West of Memphis is a global released film by Sony, on 30-foot high screens, saying all manner of things that I could catalog for you that are deceptions or sometimes outright lies about the case. There's no competition. It's tough out there for a non.
Okay, before we bring Adam on, I just want to mention that we're going to start taking calls after the break, okay? So don't call in yet, guys, okay? We're going to take all your calls. Relax, okay? You don't have to hunt us down. Adam, what do you... go ahead.
And before Adam goes on, in a hypothetical world where Peter Jackson, for whatever strange reason, got it in his head, or George Lucas did, to finance a film suggesting the guilt of the West Memphis Three, we'd have, in this fantasy world I've just depicted, we have a totally different. There'd be clamoring for those jail bars to remain firmly closed, and The money makes a big, big difference.
Yeah, just want to add before Adam comes on is that just to have a billboard up in a town saying, hey, we're looking for witnesses. If you can afford to put a billboard up, every street corner idiot knows that you can afford to pay a witness to come in and give a testimony. Witnesses aren't, people on jailhouses aren't stupid. But go ahead, Adam, what do you have to add?
Oh, one thing is that Fred beat me to the Scrooge McDuck reference. I'd say that, anyone who has $20 million is going to look pretty innocent, one. Damien's lawyer, Dennis Reardon, he also represented a guy named Phil Spector. Yeah, that didn't work out too good for Phil Spector, but, Spector also, he also had Werner Spitz, who also happens to work for the WM3 defense team. Spitz in the Spector case, he said the victim spontaneously shot herself. Spitz is also famous for working the Casey Anthony case for the defense there, who he helped get her off. So he kind of has I don't know if he has a thing for like helping child murderers out, but he seems to like to get attached to famous cases. And of course they hired Michael Bowden. Michael Bowden's like a celebrity expert. He'd also been famous for attaching himself to like celebrity cases. He had been part of the defense in the OJ case where he suggested that the blood that linked OJ to the crime was old, or that it had been somehow contaminated. He'd also been taking part in the Klaus Van Bulow case, so he'd helped get Van Bulow off in the second trial. He's got like this is like a dream team of like defense team scumbags.
Right. Okay, all right. Now, well, I'm hearing now. I'll listen to this. I'm hearing now that we're having a problem with taking phone calls, and I'm gonna have to figure out what my Skype number is in order to take these calls. But we'll figure it out. I think I got it here. Okay. And we'll start taking calls after the break. We got a couple of minutes left. Anything you guys want to add real quick?
Brace yourselves.
Hey, celebrity scumbags again.
Well, I can add something. I mean, the amount of the celebrities who have lied openly about the case is really remarkable. And there's some parts of my book, like, I can't even believe when I reread it, like Margaret Cho calling Damien Echols a heavy metal messiah, and this is like, they're being tortured by this, unjust hillbilly Arkansas, legal system. It's incredible how they're willing to distort, the actual record. It's really, and I mean, the other thing is how many people have been duped, not just by the West Memphis Three, but by these public relations people and supporters as well. So like people come to this case and don't actually delve into the facts, but look at what other people say. They just fall into line. It's kind of like that sociological experiment where you come into a room, and I forgot the name of it, but, 5 guys all say that center line is shorter when it's not, and the 6th guy just follows into suit. Okay, well, yeah, it's just shorter. They just say it because everybody else is saying it. So I think it's like they're using like that type of tactic, if that makes any sense.
It does make sense. Okay, anything you guys want to add? Because I got to figure out how to get my Skype number out there. Anything you guys, Fred or Adam, want to add?
I'm good right now.
Okay. All right, so you know what? First we're going to have a call. You know who wants to call in? Terry Hobbs. And
oh, there we go.
I'm Terry Hobbs. Let me tell you something. And everybody on my Facebook loves Terry Hobbs. He's a straight guy, very kind man. He just has to give me his number, and I can call him up and get him in here. And then I'll give out my Skype number. We'll take some calls from the people as well. So we were talking about the PR team that they have working for them and stuff like that. Why don't we go into Echols' early history, the stuff about with the dogs and how his girlfriend Dominique was involved in the vampirism and that kind of stuff. Anybody want to take that?
Sure. I mean, I can start off with the Exhibit 500, which was compiled by his own defense team. It was compiled by a private investigator by the name of Ronald Lax, who recently passed away. but it is a really damning compilation of his psychiatric records, what his social workers said, and this has all been suppressed. And I included some significant amount of that information in my book. One of the things I think that I was surprised about is that there was really no public timeline that I came across for this case. So my book timelined everything and put it to dates of when, things actually happened. And, it's interesting because so many people don't even talk about it. Like, they don't even emphasize the timeline that's in the Exhibit 500 of his psychiatric records and being in 3 different mental institutions and being arrested and how many people he threatened to kill, it's really life, and it's not just a dog, but there are things in, like, the psych records that are just absolutely deranged, and even in the testimonies of when he did interviews with all of his associates and the other people in West Memphis, some of the facts in there are absolutely shocking, and, those are all included in the book.
What's the name of that book again?
Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West Memphis Three Murders.
And what's your website again?
Well, I have kind of a small website up right now, www.occult911.com, and most of my recent writing since the first publication of the book a year ago is at a WordPress site that you can probably just type in WordPress into Google, type WordPress Abomination William Ramsey, no pop-up. But there's a lot of more recent articles and information and pictures that I've included in that WordPress site.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we're coming up to a break. Now, after the break, I just got Terry Hobbs has been messaging me on Facebook, and I'm going to call him after the break. Then we're going to call some listeners. I'm going to give you my personal Skype. Oh, what's this? Okay, we got that. I'm going to give the listeners my personal Skype number so they can harass me for the rest of the week after the show. Okay, and hopefully we'll have William come back on Thursday because there's a lot here I want to get into. So now, real quick, before we go to the break, we got like a minute. Anybody want to throw something in for a minute? Adam or Fred?
Sure. Like, in Damien's past, there's an incident where he had talked about wanting to beat someone with a baseball bat and bite them like a vampire and drink their blood.
Yeah.
That's, I don't consider that kind of a normal past, really, something normal people say.
Well, also, too, real quick, because we only got a couple of minutes. Also, his ex-girlfriend was talking about how he had done rituals with her with candles and sex and all kind of stuff like that. And then there was also, too, about how his girlfriend, Dominique Tier, I always forget if it was her sister or her cousin, who was a very well-known vampire advocate in California, and she was actually the spokesperson for vampirism in Transylvania. And she had a zine, a magazine she put out, all this about vampirism. Okay, and Dominique Tier had returned from visiting this relative in California right before these murders took place, and she had with her some documentation from this magazine about how music used to sacrifice children to. Okay, now all these supporters can poo-poo this all they want, but listen, when you have all these little facts adding up, where there's smoke, there is fire.
Yeah, and her mother admitted to drinking blood.
Exactly.
That's in the court records. Like, my mom drinks blood, I drink blood, what's the big deal? I think she said something like that. It's in my book.
Well, what the supporters try and say is, she said that first. She said it to a driver. I think it was Detective Driver. And he put it in the report, so he must have made it up. Everyone has to be lying except the convicted murderers. Everyone else is lying. All the police, the judges, the 24 jurors, the radio hosts. Okay, everyone, the producers, everyone's lying, but the convicted murderers. Okay, we may not have another break coming up at 8:00. How do you like that, guys? We maybe go for 2 hours straight, which would really be fun. Yeah, I know. Well, we can take turns going to the bathroom. Someone's going to have to talk. But I just want to point out that we are a listener-sponsored station. And maybe if we had sponsors, we would have breaks coming in when they're supposed to. And if you want to support the station, you go to freedomslips.com, and you have to hit the donate button and donate to the station. If you want to help me out and support me, I just got a big ticket tonight. You go to my website, emailrevealer.com, and you buy my book, How to Succeed as a Private Investigator. We got all kinds of services on it, so I'm a pretty well-known PI, and I can locate cheaters and trace emails, catch cybertalkers, all kind of stuff like that. Digital forensic. Okay, welcome back to Saturday Night Firing Lines, normally with Douglas Dietrich. is California. I don't know what he's doing, to tell you the truth, because he's not speaking. He's just kind of hanging around and stuff like that. I don't know, picking people's pockets. I don't know what he's doing. But I want to thank Douglas Dietrich for letting me fill in for him tonight. Doug's a great guy. Doug is the first host on Revolution Radio, whoever invited me to this station to do it as a guest. And he got me roped into all of this. I tell you, I don't know if I want to thank him or not. Okay, we have with us today William Ramsey, the author of this book about the West Memphis Three. It's on my blog. We have Fred Walsh, who's a notorious blogger in all these circles here. He's a feared, ferocious blogger. And we have Adam Galvin. Again, he's Fred Walsh's sidekick. They don't go anyplace alone without each other. I'm going to try and get Terry Hobbs on the air right now. I'm going to call him up and add him to the call. Terry's a great guy. He agreed to come on the show with us last time with Sheila and myself. And we had a lot of audio problems, and he could hardly get his story out. But we become friends. We're Facebook friends now. Terry.
Yes, sir.
Hey, brother, how are you, man? Thank you for taking my call, my friend. You're live on the air, okay? So, what do you got to say to us, man? What do you want to add?
Well, I'm going to say this, Ed. This is a story that we have lived for the past 20 years. You know, three young men done to three little boys in West Memphis, Arkansas.
So, Terry, can you tell us firsthand, because this was your stepson, you never dreamed that what you got involved in would escalate to this point and would still be going on 20 years later, especially to the point where people would be trying to divert attention to you and accuse you. What would you like to say in your defense? And also, too, would you be willing to take calls from listeners as well?
Well, I'm not really much on answering questions, Ed. I had really no reason to answer a question. But I would like to say what we have lived with for the past 20 years is to see all the change of events that has taken place. You know, as being on this side of the story, it can be mind-boggling. It can be confusing. It can be, you know, it causes you to relive some of this. You know, and for 18 years, we waited on an execution.
All right.
That we never got, and instead they were set free.
Terry, do you think you would have felt better if you did get an execution?
Well, you know, there's a point when it's not in your control. It's out of your hands. And so you have to live by law at some point. And that is what we were waiting on.
Yeah.
You know, if it would have happened, I'm not sure if it brings closure. I've never had to, you know, any of us have never had to deal with something like that. I don't know what kind of, you know, what it would do to you, how it would change or make you feel any different. But it, you know, I think you'd feel there was kind of justice for the three little boys if it would have happened.
I think if it would happen right away, you'd feel something. But I think 20 years later, you know, I don't know. You know, it's after so many years have passed. I don't know. I don't know if it would give you any kind of healing or whatever. Now, Terry, we've been talking tonight about the kind of harassment and the stalking and all this kind of stuff that just average people interested in the case have experienced, and the author of this book has experienced. Now, what about you, as an actual victim, the person whose stepson was actually victimized and killed? What kind of harassment and stalking have you received?
Well, I've had some run-ins with different people and people saying things and, you know, and email and hate mails on the internet and, you know, my name tossed around all around the world, smeared like a piece of mud.
Yeah. And
yeah, you bet I get all this too. And I've had friends on the internet who helped me hide all these messages. You know, I've had to learn some things, and I don't really appreciate it. My name should have never been out there. You know, if I'd have had the $20 million to counter what they were doing, the defense was, you know, we would have had a battle.
Well, you know, I can't think of anything lower than smearing the stepfather of a child victim, you know, and to try and save your own ass, you know, and to be so heartless and so cruel that you want to smear the parents like they did to Byers as well, and you want to smear the parents of the victims, you know, that you just to save your own pathetic ass. That's what it is, man. There's no way around it.
And that's true, you know, and it's sad that today's society, you know, can say and do anything that they want to say and do, and it's okay. You know,
yeah, because you did try and sue, right?
And that's why, Ed. You know, I've seen my name just tossed around by everybody, and then the celebrities started getting into it. And yes, I call myself trying to stand up for myself, trying to shut this bunch up, and trying to, you know, get some things behind me and get cleared up. But did that work? No, it did not.
Well, let me ask you this, Terry. I'm sorry to interrupt, but now you and I had talked earlier in the week, and Pam Hicks, your ex-wife, she was supposed to come on with us tonight as well. Now, we had talked about, because there was a time when Pam was making some rumblings and accusations, but now she's recanted all that, hasn't she? And has she apologized to you for that?
Well, sure, Pam. You know, every time in the past that Pam has done that, or even members of her family I have seen on the TV doing this. Well, I have always made contact with Pam and told her, Pam, you know, that is wrong. And she has apologized more than once to me, and that's a good girl. I can tell you, a good lady.
She seems nice.
She really is. She's been promised this and that from everybody in the world out here. You know, we'll sue the state, you know, help them get out of prison. Well, they got out of prison. Now there's no lawsuit against the state. You know, she's been promised and had things said to her, you know, and, you know, it confuses her, and I'll say that, it does. But she don't deserve this. She does not deserve to be bothered by any of them people, but yet they do.
Yeah, I hear you. Now, do you think when she first agreed to come on the show tonight, because, you know, she hasn't returned my calls since, there was some stuff on the internet about that people were contacting her and telling her not to do the show and not to come forward. What do you think happened there?
Well, I've heard, you know, and it's only hearsay, but it comes from the family, you know, that people made contact with her and told her don't do it, you know, and they had their complaints, gripes, whatever, you know, and it's stuff like that, you know, confuses Pam. And she would love to get on there and tell some things, I'm sure, but when she does, they pick it apart like they do us.
Yeah. Yeah, we're up against huge odds here. Okay, so, Terry, we are going to take some listener phone calls. Do you want to hang out for that? You don't have to answer any questions if you don't want to.
Well, I'll listen, and I'm watching you on the internet too.
Okay.
But I'll be around. I'll leave the phone line on and listen to it also.
So now, what about Adam, Fred, and William? Do you have anything you want to add to this? The whole thing about Pam and the accusations against Terry and the recanting the accusations and the apologies and everything?
I think that she's got a lot of people surrounding her that are trying to use her. They have something to gain out of trying to point the finger at Terry. Point the finger at anybody, really. Anybody else but the West Memphis Three. It's basically a game with them. Anybody else but the West Memphis Three.
Yeah, I think as Terry and Adam just alluded to, that the Terry Hobbs did it scenario pays well. The West Memphis Three did it scenario does not pay well, and I'm living proof of that.
Yeah.
As I sit here without a check from you, Ed.
Well, don't get your hopes up. But real quick, I want to give in the call-in number because we had a lot of people saying they wanted to call in. So you can Skype in to the number or call in 702-605-4894. And if you call in, I'm going to mention your area code. So just kind of sit tight until I pick up your call. Or if I pick up your call, just wait till I mention your area code, and then we can join the conversation. Okay, so I don't know, guys. We want to respond to the. I guess we're going to get a flood of calls from supporters who want to ask questions like, "Well, what evidence do you have that these three are guilty?" And we've touched upon the thing with the confessions, the multiple confessions. And there's even a couple more that Fred didn't mention. There's the one where he confessed to, I believe it was a relative came by his house and he gave him some shoes, and that whole situation.
That was a friend of his. That it was the very next day. Jesse came over. Jesse talked to him, and he broke down. He cried and said that me and my friends we hurt some kids the other day. And he gave him the shoes and said he didn't want to ever see them again. There was a tiny, very small drop of blood on them.
Now, that was before he was ever picked up and questioned by the police with that first infamous, which was described as a 12-hour interrogation. So this is before any of that. This is the next day, was in the papers, and he alluded to the injuries to the kids, and he gave these shoes to a relative who started wearing the shoes. And then that relative gave it to another friend or relative who started wearing the shoes. So, it's a pretty interesting situation with this bunch over there,
Yeah, the guy's name is Buddy Lucas. People toss him around now as possibly a suspect. They claim that him, Terry, David Jacoby, and L.G. Hollingsworth all got together and they murdered the boys.
It has to be anybody but the guys who confessed and were convicted. Okay, the number to call in is 702-605-4894. If you have any kind of questions or comments to my guests, William Ramsey, Fred Walsh, Adam Galvin, and we have Terry standing by if he wants to respond, not to questions, but if he wants to throw in a comment there, he's welcome, more than welcome to throw in his first-hand knowledge and experience with all this kind of craziness going on here. Ann, do we have any questions from the chat room? Oh, the call coming in. It's a group. It's 760. We're picking you up. Okay, area code 760. What do you have to say?
Wow, no wasting. Thank you very much, Mr. Opperman.
Hey, Bill Grant.
No, my name's Bruce. I'm calling from Canada.
Okay, great. You have.
Well, first, let me say that I enjoy your show, and that interview with Jim Ross seemed absolutely fascinating. It was like 3 seasons worth of CIS or something.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I've been listening to the show since the commencement, and I can't quite understand what your take on Memphis 3 is. Did they do it, or did they not do it?
Oh, are you kidding me? I think we're all in 100% positive agreement that Damien Eccles and Jesse Miskelly and Jason Baldwin are 100% guilty. Anybody have any?
I haven't read this book, but I mean, how are you coming to this conclusion? They're fooling a lot of people. One of them is the guest of honor at the 20th anniversary of AIDWIC, the Association in Defense of the Wrongfully Convicted, which commenced in Canada and now has a U.S. chapter. That's taking place November 20th. Adam McGowan, one of our most famous Canadian directors, has also done a film about the trial and the circumstance. I did see Paradise Lost. I got from that documentary that they didn't do it. I'm very familiar with wrongful convictions. And, I mean, you've referenced Barry Scheck, but let me tell you, the Innocence Project doesn't do anything but evaluate DNA. If there's no DNA, that's why Barry Scheck would pass on it. He doesn't take up a cause just to go back to court and relitigate a case.
Does anybody want to take this? Because there was DNA in this case, wasn't it? This is what they were trying to point to Terry.
DNA is on a few items, but it was from all sorts of different people. There's on a few items there's some DNA mixtures, and at least 2 items some possibility that a few members of them 3 might not be ruled out, which is some of the ligatures on Stevie Branch.
So, caller, you're trying to say that you believe that the 3 convicted are not guilty?
Well, I'm saying, Ed, that I'm open-minded, and until this show, I'd assumed that Aidwick was correct, and that the popular opinion of people like Peter Jackson was correct, and that they did not do it. However, I will concede that I make something of a bias towards the wrongful conviction community because I have done a few years of volunteer work for them. I have something what you might call a dated opinion of police, of prosecutors, and
well, you know, I do too. You know that, right?
Pardon me?
You know that I do too, right? I'm a defense guy. I work for the defense 90% of the time.
Yeah, I mean, when you get into this stuff and you see case files and you talk to a few prosecutors and you get into this work from the perspective of Aidwick, your eyes are really opened to how corrupt the police can be. It should be criminal to deliberately disregard or not turn over exculpatory evidence to the defense team.
But that didn't happen in this case. Let me ask you a question now. You got Ed and Adam. Where would you direct this guy to? He seems like a really a good-hearted man who is for the defense, for the defendant, wants to get a fair trial, but he's not the kind of face that guys are. What website would you direct him to get some real in-depth information?
On my site.
And what is it?
Oh, it's the W13 Revelations, and it's WordPress. Just pop that into Google.
And there's the Callahan. You know what you do, brother? If you go to my blog, the Opperman Report, I have all the links to the major sites of the non-supporters, the people that are working on a shoestring budget, trying to get the truth out there, as opposed to these 3 convicted killers that have a wealth of funds behind them, and these movements, all this kind of stuff, and huge support. So check out those links.
Yeah, that doesn't do much, Ed. If that did much, then Leonard Peltier would be out of prison right now. You know, it took Reuben Hurricane Carter a couple decades to get out of prison, even though, Bob Dylan was writing songs. See, when you say stuff like that...
Hurricane Carter is a story. There's a lot of that story. I looked into that.
Yeah, so have I.
He's innocent. That was another cause.
Also, there's another controversial case tied up into the West Memphis Three, the Guy Paul Morin case that John Douglas worked. John Douglas sent a profile in that case, the Christine Jessup case, and he'd learned ahead of time that there was a suspect in the case, Guy Paul Morin, and it was determined that this is very unethical, and he knew that to make a profile, and he knew this, yet made one with this suspect in mind, and the police looked at him like, oh my God, this sounds just like our guy. So, of course, they went out and they labeled him the number one suspect. Then John Douglas, he's like, oh yeah, really? It sounds just like your guy. He was like, okay, here's what you got to do to interrogate. Put a giant fingerprint blown up on the wall and say that it's his print, that we have it and it matches to you. It was found at the scene. And then put a bunch of filing cabinets in the room with his name on it to look like you have a mountain of evidence against him. He was trying to break this guy to make him like falsely implicate himself in a murder. And then and put out the profile into the media. The second profile that sounds like him, let's see how he reacts. So they put it on the media, and his dad asked him, hey, that sounds just against him. They thought he was guilty. And, a few years go by after he was convicted and everything, and they tested DNA found inside the victim, and it didn't match him. It wasn't him. But John Douglas, he published a book called Journey into Darkness, where he still insisted that guy Paul Morin was still probably guilty.
Are you kidding me, man? That was actually the inception case for Aidwick 20 years ago. And the definitive book on that is called Red Rum the Innocent by Kirk Macomb, the senior court reporter for the Globe and Mail, our national newspaper in Canada. See, I mean, are you suggesting a left-wing conspiracy to exonerate guilty people here? Because it sounds like you're trying to do on this show.
I feel like falsely implicating himself in murder. And then he said...
you know what? We're losing. Is that you, Adam? We're losing you.
Let me just say, Ed, that I agree with a lot of the research you've done. When you get into the occult dimension to this, which a lot of the police are not aware of, like Jim Rothstein is, it puts a whole new spin on things. And it's very fascinating for me to listen to your work. But at the same time, I would caution people who listen to you to not go too far in the other direction and think every wrongful conviction is a satanic cult trying to get one of their own out of jail.
Oh, no, I would agree with you. What is your name, caller?
My name is Bruce.
Bruce, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, Bruce, I would agree with you 100%. I'm not saying that I don't think that Hurricane Carter has anything to do with Satanism or, yeah, and you know me, I'm a leftist, you know that, right?
I'm not sure if I'm left or right. All I care about is the truth and a functioning justice system, because a conviction is one of the horrible things you can go through.
And I agree 100%. And I have been researching this case for many, many years, and I appreciate that you respect my work. And I'm convinced that we got the right case, man. These guys are good for this 100%. I'm convinced. And I have been for years. That there's multiple confessions. There's polygraphs. There's all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, You got to be careful with the confessions, though. In my province, Ontario, the Attorney General just passed a law 2 years ago where a judge has to be satisfied that a confession is bona fide and that the person has not coerced by an impossible legal hurdles put forward by the Crown. You see, the problem is, and it permeates both Canada and the U.S. now, people are always talking about medicine, and if you don't have money and you get to the U.S., you're screwed. People rarely talk about the justice system. If you get charged with anything in Canada or the U.S., you're completely utterly screwed, because the prosecution can bring an economy that is tenfold yours to the case. And money is everything in court. If they bring an expert in who does a bite mark analysis, and that expert costs $100,000 out of the public purse, how are you going to compete with that as a private defense with legal aid or a public defender? You can't. The whole system is screwed now.
And, Bruce, I agree with you 100% as far as that goes. And you're a great caller. I know the calls coming in. And you call them wonderful Thursday afternoons when we take calls.
I will, Ed. I love your show, man. You got to get Jim Rothstein back on.
Dude, I got stuff with Jim Rothstein that he sent me off the air. I got all kind of police reports and stuff he's been sending me. So we're definitely going to get back. But that's one of these other calls. Just hold on 1 second, okay? 615, I'm picking you up. Okay, 615?
Yes.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, Bruce, I'm going to let you go, okay, my friend?
What happened to you?
Thank you, my friend. Now, you're 760, right?
Well, I'm actually, this is just the G-Talk area code. I'm actually in Toronto, which is 416.
Okay, my brother. Thank you very much, okay?
All right, bye-bye.
Okay, 615, what do you say?
I had a question for Terry.
For Kerry?
Terry.
Oh, Terry, okay. Well, why don't you shoot a question to me, and if Terry wants answers, he can.
Sure, that'll be fine. And I just wondered if David Jacoby had been in contact with him ever since he first turned on him, and if he's apologized to him.
What do you think, Terry? You feel like answering?
The whole question.
Yes. Terry, have you been back in contact with David Jacoby since he turned on you? And if so, has he ever apologized to you?
No, I haven't talked to him. Not one time since.
Okay, thank you. I have a question for Fred, too.
Shoot. Sure.
What's your favorite color, Fred?
Oh, brother.
I walked into a Monty Python scene right here. I'll divulge that later on my blog. No, actually, I just have a Facebook page.
The right answer was red. But okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay, I just picked up, okay, relax. I just picked up a 5-3.
Yes. Yeah, anyhow.
Hey, what's your name, brother?
My name's Tony.
Okay, so what's your question?
My question is concerning Terry Hobbs clearing himself.
Right.
Why hasn't better effort made for the man to clear himself? It doesn't have anything to do with the defense, nothing to do with the falsely convicted, but him. He's actually perpetuating his own murder case. He's already a suspect.
He's not really.
Father. Okay. The question is, what are you going to do to clear yourself? And when are you going to do it? Stop worrying about people saying, well, I wouldn't tell the defense team anything. It don't have anything to do with it. Man's being accused of murder. So he should do everything by all means to get his own name clear. That's what he cries about this whole time. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, hold on.
He's been very cooperative with authorities on the matter. The only people he's not really talking about is the defense. Because the defense has done everything in their power to try to twist and turn everything he says. But he's to the police. He's talked to them. There's interviews with him.
Terry, how long was your interview?
Yes, I know of the interviews, and they weren't corroborated. None of his story was corroborated. As a matter of fact, it was said that most of his stuff was wrong by his own alibi.
Well, let me start with this, okay? You're saying that. Hold on a second. 573. What's your name again?
Tony.
Tony. Okay. Here's the deal. You're saying he's being accused. He's not being accused by the police. He's being accused by slander and accusations by people on the internet. And when you're in the public eye, my friend, these things come at you. You got these people from under rocks.
No, he's accused himself with a motive. The only person that has a motive, he's the only person that has a motive to kill those kids.
Oh, my
and he's
friend.
on the radio. He's on the radio to talk to people. He's here. He's talking to people. He's doing everything he can to clear himself.
Wait,
I don't understand that.
Let me ask
not by any means whatsoever.
Okay, Terry.
Appearances and like meet and greets, like Damien Eccles. What does he got to do?
Well, there's no more DNA to be found. Okay. Well, there is a timetable to be found, and Terry has left it mostly open. He needs to sit down and give an hour-by-hour accounting of what he did that night, because we already know that he admitted on your radio show he was in the woods at 7 o'clock, and he wasn't seen again until 7:45. He was in those woods alone for 45 minutes, and his hair was found.
That's Fred's chopping up the chicken with the Geraldo clip.
And right where his were, he admits being in there. He doesn't see anybody else. I mean, I don't understand what it is with law enforcement. They're stuck with the story that they have to stick with, but any decent detective... Okay, go ahead.
I think that's the problem, is that you don't understand law enforcement, the way law enforcement works. And if there were any kind of legitimate evidence of any kind of concern toward Terry, it would be looked into. There's no reason not to. This is what they like to do. And especially
this is about finding the truth. Yeah,
well,
this is about finding the truth.
But see,
anybody but the WM3?
Yeah, right.
Am I talking to Ed?
Yeah, well, I'm Ed, and then that's William talking too. We're all on the phone together, my friend.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I've got the Alabama going. I'm talking loud. Am I talking loud?
No,
okay.
You're good.
Okay, good.
Well, but like William was saying, you only want to look at people besides. Well, like William was just saying in a minute, that you only want to look at people besides 3 that confessed, that were convicted by 24 jurors, and you want to pull out anything out of blue. It was 45
Well,
minutes.
that jury didn't have all the information available.
You think you have more information than the jury?
Just at your last radio show, we found out that Terry was in the woods alone at 7 o'clock. He's never told anyone that.
It was mentioned in the Geraldo show back in the 90s. John Mark Byers mentions it.
No, Terry didn't admit John Mark Byers.
John Mark Byers was still with it, too, back in the 90s. He even acknowledged it. It's in the Geraldo show.
But Terry never told the cops that.
Okay, listen, we can
Terry only told you radio show, okay.
The thing is, we can go over minutia of 45 minutes, but when you look at the totality of the case, it's so overwhelming that to try to pinpoint 45 minutes from 20 years ago...
It's a lot of information. I know, a lot of information. It'll take a new person a year to read everything.
I don't even know what I did 20 days ago.
Another thing of Gregson is Terry Hobbs withholding the fact that saw a black bum heading away from the crime scene area. Now, that black bum could be connected to the Bojangles black man. And for all we know, Terry was insinuating that the black bum he saw was the Bojangles man from the previous night, meaning the man was still there all night and Terry seen him taken off. But Terry never tells him until he tells Lieutenant Mitchell in 2007 that I seen a black bum. Well, now...
I never understood the insinuation about the black bum. There's There's literally like lots of
the jury never heard this because Terry listened to the testimony of Mr. Bojangles, and Terry never comes forward with this information. This is a suspect, a possible suspect, and that jury.
All this information was never talked about back. There's not an official report on it, but there is a lot of information out there. Pam has even said on the internet that they talked to Terry.
No, it wasn't told to the police that week when they were begging to come forward with information. Couldn't come forward.
So they didn't have to Terry then. Is that what you're saying?
Huh?
What I'm saying is, are you saying that they never talked to Terry, never spoke to the guy?
No, it's on record until 2007.
They looked into many of them. They looked into like just about all the parents. There's things about like Todd that aren't even public. That they looked into all the parents. They looked into gas records, all sorts of things.
Yeah, Tony. Can I add one thing? Okay, because what I do as a private investigator and as paralegal and as a digital forensic investigator is when you have a criminal defendant. Okay, like let's say Eccles or Baldwin were to come to me and say, "Hey Ed, man, we need to hire you to punch some holes in the case that the government has against me." Okay, and what I'll do is I'll look around and come up with these kind of things like you're saying. Hey, there's 45. Hey, there's a black guy, and I'll come up with that and stuff, and we'll put it together and we'll present it and we'll give it to lawyers, and they'll do their best effort, man. They go to court, okay, and that's where the game is played, man. It's played there in court in front of 24 jurors, and guess what, man? They lost. They had guys trying to punch holes in this case 20 years ago, man, and they lost overwhelmingly. And you can't come back now later on after you've had 20 years of a bunch of guys, of $20 million defense fund trying to poke holes in the case, and now you got something new to poke holes, and you want to know what? Next week,
but this information was available back then, and it wasn't discovered and presented to the jury.
The jury got to listen to several alternative suspects, though. They got to listen to the Mark Byers situation, Mr. Bojangles, and they even listened to some guys who were out of state that insinuating were gay.
And they made the wrong decision. Even one juror interviewed said that they knew that Mark Byers was involved, but they couldn't do anything because Mark Byers wasn't on trial. That there shows you that the whole jury, she even said that they talked about it, that the whole jury had doubts, and they were unsure. But something
Mark Byers should be considered.
No, not at all.
Hey, Tony.
I'm just trying to get a beat on like who we should be looking at. Then.
Well, let's
looking at the motive and the opportunity and who left evidence there.
Well, that'd be Nichols then, because you see my roadside covered in mud.
And the person who admits that he was in woods alone for 45 minutes.
Well, Damien Eccles lived right next to the woods.
At the most plausible time of the murders.
Yeah, looking for
Damien and Jason were both placed having gone there by Tabitha Hollingsworth, that they used to go back there by the time Heather Cleat, Jason's girlfriend, she to go out to those woods. Heather Cleat also had Christopher Byers in her house. Jesse McKelly used to babysit one of the friends of the boys.
Guess what? The West Memphis Three weren't even there.
But Tony, don't you think that's more plausible than trying to point a finger at a stepfather that was looking for three missing boys? Everybody saw him searching for the three boys. There's no doubt about that. So, like,
that's part of your motive there, Ed. That's part of your motive. The man got mad. He got mad trying to corral three kids.
So we decided to rape and mutilate them?
He caught them in the woods. He lost it. He intermittent explosive anger disorder, whatever you want to call it.
I mean, where someone just like gets angry and then murders three kids for no reason.
Yeah, without a history of killing dogs and cats.
He had reasons. He had propensity to violence already.
Okay.
There's cases where someone like murders one kid that like they're the parent of, but like two unrelated kids.
That's very unusual.
Well, he had to kill witnesses.
Okay. Tony, I appreciate the call. Okay, but I want to move on from this rehashing this stuff, attacking Terry.
Might I address it?
Okay.
Sure. Right, go ahead.
Okay. Just 1 second. One question is, where did Terry park at? Where was his parking spots at when he first went out there and went in the woods alone? Where did he park? That's all we want to know is where he parked at. Maybe maybe that will help us to the truth, whether he did it or not, whether the West Memphis Three If we get a better
I think he
time
wouldn't be satisfied even with that answer. I somehow don't think he would be satisfied even if he knew where Terry had parked.
Yeah, right.
Maybe I'm wrong.
He's not going to say where he parked.
If I might address a few of these points.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, Tony. Hi, Tony. This is Fred.
Hey, Fred. How are you, sir?
Hey. Just 2 or 3 points.
Okay.
Like you kind of alluded to, I'd reiterate that Terry is under no obligation to cooperate with the defense needs or the lawyers.
Absolutely not. I don't want him to cooperate with the defense team. This should be independent law enforcement.
But if he's obligated to cooperate with police, which he has done, my next couple of points are he has placed himself in the woods searching during daylight hours. On the recent Opperman show right here, he mentioned around 7, and as Adam or William said, way back in 1994 it was actually the Maury Povich show, but same difference as to her. John Mark Byers is in the transcript there in 1994 as saying there was another father. Obviously, it's Terry Hobbs because Todd Moore and Stephen Branch were not on the scene yet at that point.
Mark was at the Goodman Dead End. He hears Terry across over in the Bleakin Woods. Okay, 7 o'clock.
But at that time, in 1994, John Mark Byers didn't seem to feel especially damning or incriminating for Terry to have been in the woods at the time. And now, of course, things have radically changed where John Mark Byers, he's accused Terry of the crimes. So, what's changed? Why was that seemingly kind of an innocuous, harmless detail that Terry was in the woods then, but now it's looked at as incriminating?
I would say because back then Terry never gave a timeline. Nobody knew mine, and of course Art did mention David Jacoby being there with the search team, the families and the neighbors there late at night. But other than nothing was ever heard of David Jacoby until his hair was found. So that's important missing information that law enforcement never got and the jury never got to hear. That's reasonable doubt. With the extra suspect, the blood bomb, David Jacoby's was out there, David Jacoby's hair was there, Terry was out there, Terry's hair was there. Yeah. That's reasonable doubt, and this never was presented to the jury. Those guys did not get a fair trial.
Stop. Can I butt in here? Can I butt in here? That's not their hair, okay? Don't.
Okay.
Listen. Very important. Listen. There's an important distinction. Hairs which were, found during a fishing edition in evidence that's 15 years old were hairs from which Hobbs and Jacoby could not be removed as potential matches. It's not exact matches. So don't mistake that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
What is it, 7%? What is it, 7%?
Well,
that's like a lot of people, 7% of the population.
I believe
not a lot of people seen in the woods, though.
But do you understand?
There's lots of DNA on there. There's even some DNA there that can't roll off the West Memphis Three on Stevie's ligatures.
Sure, but it's not the population of the searchers in the woods. If you narrow that to 7% down of the searchers in the woods,
do you understand that they found those after, like they collected that evidence after the entire crime was polluted with people walking around, and that one of those hairs was found on a tree stump, like away from the actual murder scene? Do you understand that?
Yes. Not a definitive match. Understood.
It's not
found
even
2 weeks later.
Definitive. It's not even close. It's a joke.
When people used to argue about the DNA that tied Albert DeSalvo to the Boston stranglings, they said the DNA didn't match him. DNA didn't match him. It was 2013, and a new DNA test matches him.
It's a pretty close match to the person most statistically likely to have committed the murders. You can't deny that.
No, it's true picking which one. There's DNA on the victims.
Okay, they're getting derailed here. Okay, it would. This would.
Yeah. Let's not hash it out on there. We don't have time. Okay, just one question. If he wants to answer it, no big deal. What we want him to do is just list all the places that he parked when he went and searched that he can remember. Simple as that.
Okay, thanks. If Terry wants to do that, he can do that. So, Tony, I want to thank you for your call, and thank you for your time. We're still taking calls, too. If anybody wants to call in, the number is 702-605-4894. But I could... Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
If I might just interject with the percentages that the defense team forensics offered on those hairs, the hair that they labeled the Hobbs hair on the ligature was narrowed down to 1.5% of the population, not excluding Terry Hobbs. And it's mitochondrial DNA. It's not really exact as nuclear DNA. Now, the other hair that we were just talking about, this David Jacoby hair. David Jacoby is a friend of Terry Hobbs, or was at the time. That hair was found on a tree stump a few weeks later, after the crimes, and it was narrowed to 7% of the population, not excluding Mr. Jacoby. Now, 7% is translated is about 1 in a dozen people, 1 in 12 people. To my ears, that sounds virtually meaningless. And apparently, from what David Jacoby has said online, he was presented with this before, as West of Memphis, the Peter Jackson film was in production, or about to be. He was approached by the defense investigators, Mr. Ron Lax and Rachel Geiser, and they used the language, they told him, we found a hair that matches yours at the crime scene. And he went on to say that they slid across an envelope of who knows what. He didn't end up looking at it, and suggested to him, maybe you don't want to look in this envelope, you don't want to see your handiwork, was what Ron Lax told him. And so they, applied a little bit of pressure and deception, using the words match for the hair when it's by no means a match, and using, this envelope of possible photographs. And, David Jacoby said he was shocked to find there's some hair that matches him when, in fact, it's far from the case.
Yeah, see, the thing, there's not enough there to get a conviction or even an arrest of an initial suspect. I understand people want to punch holes in the cases, and you guys like Adam and Fred, you get involved in this minutia where it's just not there, guys. This is the defense team trying to poke holes in the big case. The big case is against the 3 guys with the confessions, and against the fibers and stuff too, and witnesses and polygraphs. There's like a mountain of evidence in this case. It boggles my mind. But I don't want to take up all the time, because guess what? We only got 10 minutes left. Oh. So just like we started off, I want to give everybody a chance to do like a summation. And I want to give Terry Terry, why don't you go first, man? Terry, do you want to real quick just say a goodbye and a kind of a, I don't know. You have a statement to make, Terry?
I sure do.
Go ahead, man.
I like to say to Fred, Adam, Mr. Ramsey, and you, Ed, it's been a pleasure. This is what I put up with every once in a while. I ignore this kind of stuff. I've never been a suspect. I never will be a suspect. I'm a parent. And I appreciate you having me on the show. And God bless each one of you. Okay?
Thank you, brother. And right, the idea, the idea that we want to get into where the man parked 20 years ago, because that's going to overwhelm a mountain of evidence, confessions, and witnesses and polygraphs and all the rest of this stuff. It's just overwhelming to me. But go ahead, Terry. What else you got?
Yeah, I don't have anything else today. I appreciate you guys, and I believe in your cause, because your cause is right to me.
Amen.
And I believe that, that what folks don't know is a lot of what we all had to put that night. And it was the night that you never wanted to relive. And it's been a mess for the past 20 years, but we keep on moving forward. We have some plans, and we hope to get to carry them out. And I thank you for your time. You've been gracious. You've been nice to me. I appreciate that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for coming on, okay? I want to get to also, too, real quick, to William Ramsey and Fred Walsh and Adam Galvin. William, what do you want to sum up? And once again, how we can get your book and how we can find your blog.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for having me on your show. I really enjoyed being here. Also, you know, in case we lose things, what happened is 3 innocent children lost their lives in the worst type of way. And it has to, you know, these things should be addressed with the utmost, you know, seriousness, and that people could come in and distort record or lie or be deceived. It is really disgusting. And, you know, it's really about the preservation of, you know, that memory. I think really important. And, you know, I just hope people don't lose sight of that's really, you know, what this whole story is about. And, you know, the book can be found on Amazon, and, you know, it's on Kindle as well. And just thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, William. You got a wealth of information, and I want to have you back, too. So Fred and Adam, what do you got?
Celebrity scumbags.
I totally concur with what William just said. You know, this thing, of course, is these 3 children lost, and the families that to this day, 20 years later, are still the pain of this, the loss that radiates outwards across the years and is felt keenly. And beyond that, people are curious about researching the case. Again, the one unbiased resource is caln.ak.com, the court library of documents painstakingly scanned and put together there by numerous case followers. And I would say for those curious about learning a guilt perspective, the WM3, based on those documents, you might look at WM3truth.com and West Memphis Three, all those words about Memphis Three fact.com, has an accompanying Facebook page that's very active and is updated every other day or so with new posts and people directly discussing the case, and that's at facebook.com/West Memphis Three facts. And thank you, Ed, for organizing this and for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, I think we'll be doing shows on this in the future because it is a hot topic, and I really have a burden to get through that. I've been just, but I'm sorry, Adam. What do you have to say to somebody?
And before we turn,
to say that the way that the facts have been twisted in this case, I think it completely dishonors the memory of the victims. It elevates the murderers to the level of hero status, and it drives me crazy, frankly. You know, I feel bad for all the families involved. I feel bad that Terry gets people like who want to where he parked, like he'd be satisfied with that, as if there wouldn't be like 100 other questions like, what kind of shoes did you wear 20 years ago? How did you tie your shoes 20 years ago? What color eyes you got? And all these little questions that don't matter.
Well, not only that, but if the leadership in this and the opposition were to just point the finger at someone else, if they would have picked Todd Moore out next and say, oh, we got this, the same people calling up would be badgering him, and I bet Terry would be relieved. But, you know, they would be
They've tried for Todd before. There's some of these conspiracy nuts who claim that there's a whole drug connection, too, that Todd involved. Todd's heard it himself. He's heard these people accuse him. It's idiotic. And the reason why Todd doesn't work is because he was out of state at the time. It's proven that he was out of state at the time. He was a truck driver.
Oh, boy. Okay, so guys, how do you want to sum this up? We can all agree that you know it's a sinful tragedy, and it's being run through the mud by this group, this organized group. Do you think we should keep giving this more attention, or do you think we should just let it go?
Well, keep getting attention. I think the more it builds up, it'll knock them off their pedestal. Eventually, it's going to happen here.
Okay, well, that's the music. I want to thank everybody. Adam Galvin, Walsh, the author of this book, The Abomination, and the West Memphis Three case. Terry Hobbs, man. Terry, you're a great guy, and I love you, man. And everybody who knows you on my Facebook, everybody says the same thing, that you're a good-hearted guy and a decent guy, and everybody likes you. So I want to thank all my guests. I want to thank Douglas Dietrich for letting me fill in for him. He's a great guy as well. Brought me to the station. You can check my show Thursday mornings, 11 a.m. Pacific time, the Opperman Report, where we deal with all these kind of subjects and these kind of topics. And we should be having another show this Thursday. We're sort of scheduled for it, but we don't know what's going to happen, if Sean's going to make it or it's Pam or Terry. And all my guests who are on tonight are welcome back as well.
Revolution Radio.
Okay, I just dropped the server. I'm pooped, man. Man, I can't do this. I quit. I fucking quit, man. It's it. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Oh.
You'll be back.
Yeah, right. Wait, yeah, I'm calling. An hour before the show, I'm calling Pam up, see if she's gonna talk to me. She's not talking to me anymore. Listen, guys, thank you all, man. Hey, Terry, how do you feel?
Yeah, it was good.
I feel good, Ed.
Okay.
I've heard all this before. It's like the judge over at Marion told Ken Swindle, all you have is a theory.
Yeah, we should have dropped that guy sooner, but nah.
Well, I forgot what.
Well, that's going to be great, though, when we rehear that.
Hey, next time I'll carry a pencil and paper with me in the pot.
Yeah, right. Yeah. A video crew.
Hope there is. Thank you, guys. I got to go. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Have a good night, Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah, good night, Terry.
Good night.
Thank you, man. Bye.
Yeah, he's such a man. There's no way that guy.
Guys.
Can I say something, man? There's no way that guy could pull off a murder and get away with it, man. There's just no way.
There's a trail of evidence.
What was that?
Myers. I said he would have left a trail of evidence. There would have been blood going to his doorway. Send Myers. You would have found, like, insurance policies up the yin-yang.
Dude, I've seen cases, man. My lawyer back in New York, we case in the projects where this guy went and killed his neighbor, stabbed her up there, and went. There was a blood trail back to his apartment. He got a mop and tried to mop it. There was a mop trail from the murder scene back to his own apartment, man. So yeah, that stuff happens, and there's no way this guy could have pulled this off.
All the evidence points to those three guys. They're seen there. Gave multiple confessions, fibers, even a little bit of tiny DNA, though it's kind of murky.
Okay, so I got another show coming up Thursday. I don't have a guest, man. I don't know what to do. I guess we'll play it by ear. I'll talk to Sean and see if Pam wants to come on.
Even if she comes on just for 5 minutes, it'd be worth it just to hear her talk about that and finally put it.
And I tell you something else. I think she's better off in the afternoon than she is at 8 o'clock at night. I don't think she's. I think she could.
That's before her sisters get to her.
Well, yeah. Jeez.
The main one is Joanne. She's the main instigator here.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What is she doing?
Well, what happened was William is. Terry got to me and he says, "Hey, man, I want to hook up Pam with you." And she was on the show. I talked to her Thursday night. And what do you call it? Then all of a sudden they went online, the sisters, this one Jocelyn, like you said, and this other one, Melissa Moore, saying, "Oh, we just called her up. She's not going to do the show. She's not going to do the show." You know, that kind of crap. And I don't know what or just talked her out of it. But the thing is, it seems like she's off the wagon. She just got the rehab. But she didn't sound good to me, man.
Arrested just a little while after her drug possession. They found a crack pipe in her possession and beer.
Yeah, and she had a public toxin longer too, man. So that's what I'm saying. Maybe in the afternoon she'd hold it together a little bit longer because she didn't sound good on the phone the other night at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she should come in as like a special guest, like a surprise guest. Nobody should know about it ahead of time.
I hear you, man. You know, but I was a little overwhelmed. This was a last minute thing. This whole thing was last minute. I just heard about this like less than a week ago when I put this together, and I forgot how obsessed these nuts are. and I just promote it like I do every other show or everything else I'm up to, and I was expecting.
It's key for them to be able to say, well, everybody thinks Terry did it, including his wife, the mother of Stevie. Anything that can contradict that, they gotta go and shoot it down before it can even happen.
Well, I'm sure it would make the news, because when she made that statement at that college with that guy, with Baldwin, and when she said she was dropping her accusations against Terry, it made the local news down there.
They tried to deny that.
You know, obviously, Pam and Mark Byers, the change of heart about who was guilty really impacted public perception. You know, when you have people as closely as family members saying something, people pay more attention. And and you know, John Douglas takes not a little bit of credit for that, where, you know, he talks about having sat both of them down, and despite being told to get off Mark Byers' Mark Byers being reticent about talking with him, you know, Douglas says he was able to kind of lay out why he thought the profile fit, and that it was Hobbs.
John Douglas.
And they kind of,
My point with John Douglas earlier in the show was the whole Guy Moran thing, where he had tailored a profile with a guy already in his mind of who he thought had to be the killer, because he was told he was a suspect. Same thing happened with Terry. He was told about him beforehand. And then all of a sudden he makes a profile that just so happens to fit Terry, after he'd already talked to the guy.
You know, Terry has a story about being picked up by John Douglas's guys. He thought it was the real FBI, and it was all retired FBI guys. And they picked him up.
Yeah, that's a tactic John Douglas likes to do. John Douglas, he's been wrong countless times. He says in his book, The Cases That Haunt Us, that Albert DeSalvo was not the Boston Strangler. He likes to tap dance back and forth between if William Hirons is guilty or innocent. In his book Mindhunter, he talks about how him and Robert Ressler interviewed William Hirons, and William Hirons was obviously guilty, he says. And then he says in order that obviously William Hirons is innocent. He starts talking about this conspiracy about planting fingerprints and everything, how the police and FBI somehow planted his fingerprints and palm prints on evidence in 2 murder cases.
That's amazing, because he's also bungled the Green River killing. That was the guy up in, I think, Seattle or something like that. He bungled the Green River killer sent a letter, and Douglas ignored that. And then, I mean, he got everything wrong about the West Memphis Three case. I mean, deliberate lying. I mean, it's just astonishing what he had in his most recent book.
Well, you know, just because a guy's in the FBI or even a high-profile ex-FBI agent doesn't mean that they're very good at what they're doing. I'm in a lot of contact with a lot of these guys.
Read the 110 pages in his most recent book. It's just absolute fable.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance, but I glanced at it on your blog, though. That's what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's an absolute fiction. And he said something that I was just flabbergasted. I actually truly dropped my jaw when I read it. He said he read the case files and said, I'll just repeat it. In sum, I found not one shred of evidence and nothing in the behavioral backgrounds of Damian Eccles, Jason Baldwin, or Jesse Miskelly Jr. to suggest that any were guilty of murder.
Yeah, I saw that line.
John Douglas, that's the same book that he talks about William Hirons, that he starts suddenly talking about all these conspiracies, about how they planted evidence and they fabricated everything. They forced him to confess. That they scared him into thinking he was going to get the electric chair, and they sent him to confessing. They even involved the same. That case even had Richard Offshay, the false confession expert.
Yeah, he's full of crap too. Offshay is a total monster.
Hey, you know what? Let me interrupt for a second. You know, Ann, you're recording this, right? Ann?
Not this part.
Not this part?
Not this part.
Because I was thinking maybe we should have taped this and done like an after show, you know, and just cut out all that part about me talking about Pam and stuff, you know. Well, no, we can't put that on there.
Sorry.
You know. I like Pam. I don't want to. Yeah.
This whole case is so unbelievable.
Are you recording?
I am recording. Maybe we can edit out all the bad stuff, and do like a little after show.
You can send it to me.
Would you guys be up for that if we edited this up? We'll run it by you. Yeah. We'll send it to each first.
I wanted to agree. I wanted to agree with William, and I've got to look at his blog about the John Douglas 110 pages on the West Memphis case. He just totally disregards any chance of the WM3 being guilty. And two things that jumped out at me, and I'd like to do a more full analysis of his pages, but two things he relates are straight from Eccles himself. One, he kind of repeats that Eccles really know justice is stuff. When you combine numerous examples in research people saying they were friends, people saying Jesse was a house on occasion, Dominique related that detail, and history's being rewritten, you know? I'm starting to pick up my own voice and everything else in between.
Oh, Ed?
Yeah.
I think that's Ed. Ed, did you unplug?
Yeah, I did unplug. Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're having a bad echo.
Okay, let me plug back in.
Okay.
I thought that was me for a second.
Sorry.
I thought it was Fred, but I see that it's coming off of Ed.
I had to get up and take
You got up to do something.
Yeah, get a drink.
Yeah, okay.
I went after show like they do on Watch What Happened Lives on it with Andy Cohen where everybody's drinking.
Yeah.
I like to compare this case, though, to, like, the movie Serial Mom by John Waters. Everybody, has, their own little thing in the movie where, they're talking about, oh, what talk show did you appear on? Oh, I've appeared on this talk show. Who's playing you in the movie?
Yeah.
And, Suzanne Summers, she's the celebrity supporter in the movie.
Another John Douglas contention that's very strange and off base that speaks right to Williams' wheelhouse is when Douglas relates Damien Eccles' spiritual journey as a young man, and he includes the various world religions and Catholicism, Buddhism, and things like that, and really make no mention of. I think he does talk about he refers to the occult, but there's no mention of Satan, of course, and if you study Damien Eccles' writings and drawings in 1992, 1993 that are available to us, there's several references to Satan, and while he was in jail awaiting trial, he imagines himself to be Satan's artillery captain, grinning fool with cheeks, manning the big guns in a war with heaven, and imagines himself a Christ figure, a new Messiah that has to gather disciples for a coming war that would take place in 1984. So there's lots of touches of satanic stuff in the writings and his drawings, but to hear it from John Douglas, it's just a nice little world trip of big religions, and it's an earnest spiritual, that's not marred by any kind of Satan crap.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To understand John Douglas, you have to understand that he goes with whatever's the popular opinion at the time. William Irons was thought to be guilty at one point, so he said he was guilty. Then everybody said he was innocent, so suddenly he's innocent. He did the same thing with what he worked on. He said Wayne Williams only murdered 11 of the victims, and he knows the case.
Right. Are you guys all the stuff I'm putting up on the Skype chat?
Yeah. You're sending a bunch of files over.
That's good.
Those are the two articles. I've studied, when people start to study all this, that's what Crowley did. To me, that's a code that people who may not be familiar with occultism may gloss over. But
Crowley also talks about Buddhism too.
Oh yeah, Crowley studied Buddhism. He studied Yogi. He studied Hinduism. He studied the I Ching, all Chinese occultism. He studied everything. He Crowley knew all religions. And he believed.
I got a copy of book 4 right here in my room.
Yeah, listen. But he said that, he distilled them all into his own wisdom, but he was a Satanist. And you see other people who are in Crowley do the same thing. They all come to that certain level where they distill and take out all the wisdom from the world religions and make their own. That's exactly what L. Ron Hubbard did.
Crowley was connected with Hubbard, too,
What?
Crowley was connected with Hubbard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, did that ritual with the You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly. It's
Jack
called
Parsons.
Babylon Working.
Right, there you go.
But, these guys are all connected. I mean, my next book, the reason why I came across West Memphis Three is because the next book, which I'm at page 400, I'm trying to edit it, is about the followers of Crowley. And it's amazing these guys all think alike. So once you can kind of understand what they're saying, kind of code their words that have meanings within their own worldview, you can spot them. You can call them what you want, Satanists, Illuminates, occults, or whatever, but they all have the same view. And a lot of them all like Crowley.
I hear you.
Yeah, so it's pretty scary.
He was a freak.
He was into white magic. That was one of my favorite things. You know, he's into white magic and all this.
I like his explanation for why he changed his name to Damien and how it just so happens to correspond with a quote from The Exorcist, which they found a copy of in his room.
Well, when I got involved in this, I thought they were innocent. And at the time, I was in daily contact with Art Bell. I was working on a case with Art Bell. And Art Bell was married to a Wiccan. And so I told Burke Souls. And I says, hey, man, I can get you guys on Art Bell's show. It would be really easy. And I says, and I mentioned some other shows, too, that I had connections to at the time, too. I forget what they were. And I says, Art Bell, his wife is Wiccan. And Burke Souls said to me, he goes, ooh. He was, we really want to get on that show where the guy's a Wiccan. I don't think he even knew who Art Bell was. You guys know who Art Bell is?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how I got involved in this. Man, I thought they were innocent, and I wanted to get them exposure. But then I went and I read all the stuff from Sean on Usenet.
The first time I actually saw them, I didn't understand that they were innocent. Like I knew that people said that they were innocent, but to me they looked like. The mugshots just look like every photo you've seen of like a school shooter.
Yeah.
Every single photo.
Well, William has these videos and stuff like that of Eccles with a pentagram on his chest.
Yeah. So
I recently posted up a bunch of drawings of Eccles' his prison artwork. It's all people being mutilated and eyes gouged out.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, and it seems like now he's, he was trying to portray himself as a Buddhist and all this kind of stuff, and having no religion, all kinds of things. But right now he's pretty right out there out in the open, and they're just bowing down to him.
Well, he likes to claim that he's the Hermetic Reiki thing, whatever the heck that is. He's also got some obsession. He thinks like he's an Anne Rice vampire now too. I don't know what that is, really, that whole thing that he's got going on. It's some sort of obsession he's had that's started with his teenage years and just continued all the way to now.
Did we lose you?
Oh, yeah, we lost me for a minute there.
One of the interesting things about Eccles and his pattern is that if you read through the court records and all the documentation the police compiled, he has a habit of crank calling people.
Oh, really?
And phone calling. Like, there were a couple women who he'd call and threaten to kill. And he did the same thing, through an intermediary with Mike Blatty in Salem. He was calling them and intimidating them through this one of his lackeys. And then I went through the documents and everything on the Callahan 8K site, and I'm almost positive that he crank called the police in West Memphis, and I want you guys to listen to this. Let me see if I can play it.
Yeah, I heard that, yeah.
Yeah, it's
a very interesting phone call.
It sounds just like Eccles. So
yeah, I thought it did sound like it was possibly him. It's within his voice range to be able to do it. Whether it's really him or not, I don't know.
I'm 50-50 on it. It very well could be, but I'm 100% it could just be another taker calling in.
Well, a professional could analyze that, and match it to his voice now. You can do all kind of audio enhancement.
Well, that's what I was listening. See if you guys can hear this. All right, listen to it again. So, I mean,
yeah.
the more when I hear Eccles talk, it's just like the same sound.
It's very similar. I'll say that. It's very similar.
Well, let me ask you guys, Fred and Adam, because I know it's like you guys, whenever the Satanism is brought up on these blogs and stuff like that, everyone just laughs it off and poo-poos it. You know, like, what do you think now?
I think Eccles, he's definitely an occultist, but I don't know how much Satanism played a part in the crime. I mean, it definitely could be a factor, but I'm also open to it just being three bad guys, and one of them being an occultist.
True, too, because I don't think Miskelly has any, he's not doing this.
I think Jesse was along for the ride with his friends.
Yeah. What about Dominique? What do you think of Dominique's involvement?
I don't think she was involved, but some people do think she was involved.
Yeah. What do you think, Fred?
I think she might have suspected something, like, after the fact, but I don't know if she was actually involved. Some people say it was her on the side of the road. I think that it was mistaken identity. When you really make statements, I think it was definitely Jason and Damien that were on the side of the road.
Well, you know, I forget, TJ Tier, I forget if it's her cousin or her sister in California. She was a
cousin?
Yeah, a cousin, okay. She was a real big shot, man, as far as being a spokesperson for international vampirism. You know, she was the
spokesperson. I got a few copies of some of her some images that I saved offline from her magazine that she printed. It was called Sound.
Yeah.
Secrets, I think it was called Undead, I believe it stood for. She also worked on a vampire encyclopedia that's out there. They have a copy of it at my local library. She goes by the name Auntie Pan online. I got a link to her MySpace somewhere.
Yeah, me too. But did you know she was also a furry?
Oh, yeah. She also writes vampire erotica.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know, man. I said you can't make this stuff up.
She writes gay vampire erotica. It goes something like, and then the gay vampire stepped out of the shadows and said, I want to suck your...
So now we got all this these vampire movies, you know. I don't even follow them. You know the ones I'm talking about, the ones that kids love. Do you think that's a coincidence now that you know?
Damien was very into Anne Rice stuff.
Yeah.
He might be these vampire people. That stuff's normal now.
Yeah, I think there's one bit in Exhibit 500 where a social worker's writing about her encounter with him or his encounter with him, and the social worker's saying Damien relates that he is a vampire. This is not something that I believe is said to shock, but something he really seems to believe. And as soon as he got out, his first costume party, he chose to be the vampire costume, and he is documented as admittingly, licking and drinking. I don't know how much drinking went on, but licking of blood.
Well, you wanted to argue semantics with that. I didn't drink it, I licked it.
Right.
Yeah.
The Bill Clinton argument. Yeah.
There's also a drawing of him that an inmate did, a portrait, and the inmate drew him as complete with long fangs coming out of his mouth.
William, right? Can you guys hear me?
I hear you. What's up?
Okay, well, the thing is, you're familiar with these, the Manson, case and the Process Church and all this kind of stuff like that. Do you think it's possible that there has been a long-range plan where it was known in the beginning, when Eccles committed these crimes, that it was a long-range plan to have him released into the public as a cause célèbre, and the whole thing has been fabricated. The whole thing was a plan from the start.
I find that very, very, very hard to believe. I think that it just morphed. Like, if you follow following the trajectory of the case, like after the murders, it's like he was resigned to his fate. Like right after, you can see him when they declared him guilty, he was in, and then he decided to commit suicide 5 days later, or, did a half-witted attempt at it, and then something changed, like, right when those new documentaries came out, and there were people who, were sympathetic. Then he changed. He became a Buddhist. He cut his hair. You can see in his interviews, he's wearing prayer beads and stuff.
Right.
And then they went right after Byers. So it's like there was a snap, like something changed, and he decided to get rid of the witch stuff. And you can kind of see that in the videos that I posted on YouTube. They're part of the bigger. I have a 2.5-hour movie, but I was threatened with copyright suits like within 2 hours of putting out a Kickstarter campaign, and I was like, well, I don't know. I wasn't in the right space right then, back in the middle of the summer, where I could fight a copyright suit. So I had to just give it out in parses and pieces of it on the YouTube site. But there's a whole nother hour of information that I have that you could watch it from the beginning to the end. But the only way I can avoid a copyright suit is give it away for free. So
right.
I'm precluded and prevented from distributing it. And, I don't know how much juice these guys have left. I mean, how much of that war chest is there? Did they blow it all? I don't know if they can pay for lawyers. I mean, I don't know if they'd even do it, but just the threat was really an effective way for me to shut it down,
Well, Damon's doing those tarot card readings now.
Yeah, I mean
that's how he's making his money now. Then selling magic wands and in magic.
Yeah, well, his he still has patrons. Rich, wealthy.
Yeah, right. He's also getting paid like $10,000 to appear to make a speech.
Yeah.
I think he's expecting to get accepted to Hogwarts.
Yeah.
Well, for him, it's intergenerational too. It's not. He grew up around it. His mom, he's basically his mama's son. Look at his mom. His mom is in denial and covering up for him the whole time. She's taking pictures of him. She knows that he has a pentagram on his chest. She knows, and like I referenced it in my book, that he goes and he's collecting all these satanic books. She knows everything.
She knew that he came home one day with a skull, a dog skull, and acted like it was nothing.
Yeah, she acted like it was nothing. She knows his associations. I mean, the person who should be studied is the person whose name he took, Jack Eccles. That guy, something's up with the stepfather. And there's been other, references to other occultists in that area. One of the guys, I think his name was Jared Schwarting or something like that, said something about a guy they reference as Lucifer. And, so Eccles is learning stuff from other people. I mean, in the court records, it said he didn't even know when he started to like licking blood. He said he started 10 years earlier, which puts him at the age of 8 or 9.
One of my favorite stories about his friends is that two of them later went on to be part of a polygamist Wiccan marriage. And they appeared on MTV with the Wiccan polygamous marriage.
Oh, really?
Who did?
Yeah.
Eccles did?
No, two people that he knew that were involved in the case. One of them was Chris Luttrell and Shane Dibblebiss.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they had I got it somewhere. Sean first showed it to me. It was they had a Wiccan three-way relationship, and the woman lost her kid over it because I guess the judge decided that it wasn't appropriate to have this kid in this environment with Wiccan three-ways.
Wow, because Luttrell was one of the original suspects. I mean, he was questioned by police, and he gave a lot of incriminating information. Do you think you could?
Yeah, and Shane Dibblebiss was the one who said that Damien used to tell Deanna that he was the son of Satan.
Yeah, Dibblebiss was the one that he tried to scratch his eyes out.
Yeah,
Dibblebiss,
same guy.
Went in hiding. He was so scared that, there was a police report, nobody knew what happened to him.
Damien was listed as the chief suspect if Dibblebiss ever went missing.
Yep, that was right.
Really?
Right.
And I guess him and Chris all got together and they had a three-way relationship with this woman.
Wow, that is incredible. There it is.
I always like to pull that like little tidbit out of the hat whenever someone says, "Oh, Shane's just making this stuff up. He doesn't know what the difference between Wicca and Satanism."
Wow, I've never seen.
Well, Shane did know the difference because obviously he took part in Wicca.
See, nobody knows this stuff because everybody's afraid to talk about it on these blogs. It's laughed at right away.
Yeah, but it's absolutely central to the whole situation. Absolutely, without a doubt. Wow. I mean, see, they're all into it. They're all into it, and then there's one guy who's absolutely psychotic, who goes nuts and decides to kill some kids. I mean, that's why this case should be discussed, because
right.
You have a literal psychotic out on the street. I mean, did you guys hear the whole story about his dog Pumpkin?
No.
He got a dog Pumpkin that they got when they were up in Salem, and they had to give his wife Lori had to give the dog back because it was irritating Damien. It was basically the word is that he was going to kick the dog or something like that, but they gave it back to the shelter.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that these guys are going to wind up, unless they can buy their way out of it. But they're going to definitely reoffend. I'm sure of it, especially Miss Lee.
Oh. Well, there's still stories that he's still eating the girlfriends. That's what I've heard.
Yeah, I just heard that tonight, too.
Wow, this is incredible. I never have seen this Luttrell and Shane Dibble this picture. Oh, my God.
Where'd you get that, in the chat?
Yeah, the Polyamory Society. These people, they're all oh my God. I mean, every day I get something new. Like, when I first published the book, I had no idea that Eccles had a pentagram tattooed on his chest. I learned that later, and then I came across the stuff of him licking blood, and and then I discovered all the people that are like they're heroes. I mean, if you you research the supporters, the patrons.
Yeah.
Man.
See, I'll tell you this too, man. I'm looking at this picture too. You're talking about on MTV. You don't wind up on MTV by accident. I do a lot of this stuff. I do casting and stuff. And this is no accident. We have to find out who got them cast on that show, and that's the connection. Because these guys are getting great press, man, and it's I don't know, man.
It's amazing.
It really is.
Absolutely amazing.
So, Fred, why do you think this aspect of the case isn't discussed on the blogs?
I think you're exactly right that it's too easily dismissed right out of hand as hocus pocus schmocus, laughable. It's for people that want to dismiss it. It's hard for them to understand the distinction that it's not that we're endorsing these things as real or legitimate in terms of the power of Satan. At least I'm not. I don't know about any of that. But what matters is not what we think of that kind of material, but what Eccles' mindset could be demonstrated to be back then in 1992, 93, and for that matter now. Right when the release happened, soon after that, he got some heat online for doing things like there's this very realistic portrait painted of a demon in a fiery environment, sawing his own limbs off and piling the limbs next to him and cackling, and Damien's take on it on his Twitter feed was, "This is breathtaking." What?
Yeah, right.
It's just are you trying to fuck with people? What are you doing? But I think generally he's been in the early interviews in 1994, 95, he was more free with saying things like, I didn't drink blood, I licked. Where you could see his quote in the Geraldo show from that era. Whereas, like William was talking about, in the years since, when the support movement started getting some traction, I think people, I think for however it happened, he got the idea that maybe I should rein it in a little bit. Maybe I can fly my freak flag when I'm
That had to
out
be from
a
the
little bit
board,
more.
though, man, from Kathy and Burke and those guys. Hey, you guys know the story about Chris Worthington, right?
That's one of the Borg people.
Yeah, he's in the original Paradise Lost. Back in the old days,
the guy with the glasses, right?
I don't know what he looks like in real life, but
Okay.
I can tell you this: I researched this guy a lot, and I don't want to get into a lawsuit with this guy, so and we have to delete this part out. But I'll tell you this: is that this guy, we found him on alt pedophilia. He was posting in a Usenet on alt pedophilia, and what his post said was, "Hey, I haven't gotten any pictures of little boys lately. What's going on?"
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, and this guy, now I researched all his online activity, okay? This is what I do, do internet research kind of stuff. And we caught him, his postings on Usenet. He was talking about, he got interested in this case because he likes movies about little boys being tortured and murdered and stuff like that. And this is one of the original supporters. This is one of the founding fathers of this group.
Yeah, I remember Sean telling me a little bit about this, and what he related to me was much like you say. He said that Chris Worthington's explanation for the comment was that it was either that he was joking or that someone got on his computer. He had,
Right.
he had some kind of explanation for why that comment would appear. I don't know.
And it was another topic. It was another one of these topics that no one could touch because the big daddies and the big mommies of the Borg didn't want people talking about it, and no one was allowed to talk about it. And all the nons, as we're called, were afraid to keep repeating it. But I was never afraid to keep going back into this kind of stuff. And that's why when I was involved in this case, these guys, okay, I'll tell you guys off the record. I don't want this if we're going to do a tape. If we do an after-hours show on this, I'll give you guys the tape first, and you'll approve it, okay? But what happened was with me is I had put an ad looking for a babysitter. And these guys found my email address, and they searched for this ad, which was put up months earlier when my daughter was like 18 months old, like not even that, like 6 months old. And they started replying to that ad, trying to apply for a job as a babysitter in my home. And I traced this email back to Dallas, Texas, and I'm in Nevada, and what the fuck is someone from Dallas, Texas trying to apply for an ad to a babysitter in my home here in Nevada 3 months after I placed this ad? And I traced it back to these characters, man. And they were trying to get in my home. They were trying to make appointments to come see me in my home about this babysitter job.
Wow.
And I was not big.
That's absolutely incredible.
And I wasn't like a big guy, and I was just like a regular guy. But I was talking about stuff like the Satanism and about Chris Worthington and his interest in this pedophilia.
Yeah, I know Sean would have story after story about people that became interested from a non-perspective early on and would, time and time again be scared off or put off by supporter shenanigans of posting their photo or their residence or doing something that embarrassed them, and that Sean and Lisa O'Brien are two of the people that have kept with it over the years since the early days, but that according to Sean, there's been plenty of people that have just dropped to the wayside because it's not worth it.
Right, because of the harassment, and we don't, and the people on the non-side don't have this fascination and this romantic affection for Damien Eccles.
Right.
Yeah. What happened? If you I've posted a lot of posts that are Eccles centric, and when you do that, you end up risking getting accused of, well, you just don't like him. You don't like him personally. and it's a personal thing. So I've had to kind of, I try to cover the other guys, Jason and Jesse, and I try to reasonably state my opinions on Eccles and his behaviors and offer examples so that it's, with this, it gets very personal. The people that support them, they see three guys who are treated unjustly, and they're our guys, quote, our guys, and it's the people opposing become it. It's like you're attacking their hero or their family member, their friend.
Okay, but Burke and Kathy and them, they know they're guilty.
That's what I've heard. That idea floated before. That they. I don't know. I guess I always imagine the typical supporter mindset to be, this is the cause, and we believe it's a sort of faith-based. They don't see it as faith-based as I do, but it's a faith-based thing, and that they sincerely believe in the innocence of these guys. But I don't know. It's conceivable that there are some people that it doesn't really matter to. That I've had people say, well, they served their time.
I'm sort of in that camp, because 20 years is a long time to serve for a murder, even one as bad as this. The average guy commits a murder, they get like 8 years, and also too, unless you're Casey Anthony, or Jodi Arias, and you're on TV, and even the average child molester. People think, let's do scientific experiments on child molesters because we hate them, blah blah blah. The average child molester does 3.5 years. They get an 8-year sentence, and they serve 3.5, and they're out. Okay, and that's what goes on every day in court.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for these guys getting 20 years, man, I can live with that. I really can. 20 years is a long time in prison. And they didn't do easy time either, these guys, that I know of.
Yeah, it depends who you ask. If you ask Damien, it was hell on earth that you can never imagine, and his toothaches were. You have to imagine the most terrible pain you've ever had, multiply it by 10, and then imagine it every day, and was his life. Whereas Jason, I think by his own account and by Damien's account, which was kind of in poor taste for him to express, but Jason, according to Damien in his book, Jason liked prison and was fitting in well there and was looking forward to continuing his schooling there. And I think Jason has said some positive things about the prison experience. So, it depends which prison and what population and who's talking, but yeah. Did I just put everyone to sleep?
No, I'm still here.
I got it. I'm really tired.
It's winding down, though, guys. I gotta be honest with you. We're at the park.
Yeah. All right, guys. Yeah. Listen, thank you for coming on, man.
All right, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for everything and for putting up my qualms and hesitations. And this was proved to be a good experience, and I'd be happy to repeat it.
Yeah.
As would I.
All right, great, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Good night. Good night, Cowboy. Good night, Mary Ellen. I'll talk to myself. Good night.